Jay Shetty is a former monk and motivational speaker who's followed by over 20 million people worldwide. He went from being bullied as a child for being overweight and nerdy to living as a monk across India and Europe and becoming one of the internet's biggest celebrities. And today we're going to learn his best advice on why you must filter your feedback. Rise and shine, it's Entspresso time. I spilled.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and every morning I bring you a shot of Entspresso to help you believe in yourself more and start your day with confidence. So good morning, I believe in you, and let's do this. Over to you, Jay Shetty.
So are you just swiping up past the negative comments?
I literally skip over negative comments, genuinely, since day one. And I remember reading them at the start. And so I'll add this. There have been times when I've looked at negative comments and been like, oh, that's quite funny. Like, you know, they're funny, they're true. But overall, I try to respond to everyone who said something positive. And I rarely put any energy into anyone who put anything negative, because I don't want to change their mind. They're entitled to their belief. They're okay to feel that way. And if I feel like it's good feedback, I'll take it on board. But if I feel like it's just someone being a keyboard warrior and, you know, doesn't like me and saying what they want, then I'm not going to take that seriously.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between the two.
100%.
If there's some authenticity and truth behind it, it's a much different comment than just unabashed hate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had everything from he has a wind machine in his videos to make sure his hair flies, right? Like I've had that angle. And I'm
Wait,
like,
you don't have a wind
don't.
machine?
I just went out on a really windy day.
This is an exclusive on the podcast.
This is an exclusive on the podcast. I do not have a wind machine. But I've had everything from that, and I laughed at that. I thought that was a hilarious comment. Through to the other side of just like, you know, I don't agree with you and I don't agree with the point you're making. This is my point. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I had 3 minutes to explain that and I missed that point. Like, you're right. You know, I agree with you. If I had a podcast like this, I could have explained myself. So, you know, but I do think that we do drag our own selves down. We put all the energy into the negativity and amplify it.
I think responding to negative comments is actually a great thing. The point isn't to try to change the mind of the person who left the negative comment, although that does often happen the next day when they come back to apologize. The point of responding to negative comments is for the rest of your community to see your leadership in how you respond to negativity. Do you ignore it, or do you take the next step up and show love? So for the longest time, I've had a policy on my channel and all of my social media channels that I want to respond to every single comment. Now, at the beginning, it was me. I was responding to every single comment that came in. At the start, it wasn't that hard because nobody was leaving comments, right? My first video only had 3 comments in the first year, and it was my mom, my older sister, and some random person. So it was pretty easy to respond to comments. But even now, as we've grown, I'm still in my comments on all my platforms every day, but I have a team that also helps me in responding to people's comments. And I always want to make sure we're responding not just to the positive ones, but to the negative ones. Why? Because when somebody leaves a negative comment, as long as it doesn't affect your mental, as long as it doesn't make you feel worse about yourself, and I'll get to strategies later on in this video on how to do that, people are looking for a response. Not just the people who are leaving that nasty comment, but when people are watching your video or they're reading your post and they scroll down to the comments and then they see this really nasty comment, they're curious to see, ooh, how's that person going to respond? How is Evan going to respond? How are you going to respond? And it's your chance to either take the bait to fall into this back and forth, maybe you attack them, maybe you try to prove them wrong, this debate, or it's a chance to show them love, to show them appreciation. My default response to somebody would be much love or sending you love. And this is across not just social platforms, it's everywhere that shows up in life. I play my favorite video game, League of Legends, on weeknights, and I have a gaming channel, and people will come, and in the League of Legends community, people who you're playing with, a lot of times they'll be really negative, really toxic. It's because they hate their lives, right? Like they're coming back from a really stressful day, and then they go to play a game, and then they're partnering with somebody, and they don't like the matchup, and they just start flaming. As soon as something goes wrong, they immediately start flaming, negative, toxicity, and my default response is, hey, sending you love, much love. And sometimes it confuses people, and you'll find often even inside that game that people respond with an apology later on. It's like, hey, I was really rude earlier today. Super sorry. But again, even if you don't change that one person's mind, it's the people who are watching. And so it's always been a policy of mine is not removing a whole bunch of comments, not blocking a whole bunch of people, unless you're overly toxic and negative or you're attacking somebody else in the community. If you're coming after me, that's one thing. If you're coming after somebody on my team, or if you're coming after somebody else who's leaving a comment, they didn't necessarily sign up for that. And so that might get you blocked or deleted. But otherwise, the comments are there, and say whatever you want about me, and the default response will be love, because I think that's actually a good thing to start to train. I think so many people are afraid to go on social, to create content. You've got a big message, a mission, something that you know can actually impact people's lives, but you're afraid to share it because of potential criticism, potential backlash, potential haters or negative comments showing up. And I think the people who are doing it, I think we have a responsibility to show how we handle it and to show how we can have empathy and give love back, to hopefully give other people the courage and motivation and incentive to go off and do it as well. And so you may not be posting a ton of content. Maybe you've got some YouTube videos up or some Instagram posts up. And at the beginning, it's usually pretty positive until you kind of break out of your friend circle and then random people find you. And that's when you start getting negative comments. But I would challenge you to start to think about how can you show up with love for the people who are leaving comments, good or bad, on your content. Show up with love. You might be the only person who gives them any love, in their life, let alone just on social. So how can you show up with love to make you feel good, make your community feel good, make them feel good? I'm going to give you a 3-step process on how to do it. But before that, here's a quick message from Jay Shetty.
Hey everyone, I have been reading a bit from my friend's book, Evan Carmichael, Built to Serve, and I wanted to share this with you. So, according to a study by Carnegie Mellon University, people with supportive spouses are more likely to give themselves the chance to succeed. They studied 163 married couples and found that people with supportive spouses were more likely to take on potentially rewarding challenges. Those who accepted challenges experienced more personal growth, happiness, and psychological well-being. Now, I can truly say that I've experienced that in my life. When I first met my wife, I was just starting out. I had never released a video. I hadn't created any content, and she was such an important part of feeling supported on that journey. So whether you're in a relationship, whether you're dating, whether you're married, or even if you're single, being supported by friends and a strong community is important. Built to Serve by Evan Carmichael. Great book on how you can find your purpose, and also on reminding us that we can all make a difference in the world. Thanks, Evan.
Okay, so how can you show up with love? How can you handle the negativity, the backlash, not let it impact you personally, and still show up with love? 3 steps, let's go. Step number 1 is have empathy. The first thing that I do when I'm going to my comments or when I'm entering a game of League of Legends or whatever, walking around in real life, is just remind myself. Now it's subconscious, it's natural, but remind myself to have empathy. Have empathy, like somebody who's coming. If you believe that people are good, I've gone through Built to Serve, finding your most important core value with how many thousands of people, and it's always something positive. I've never found somebody at the core to be a terrible human. I don't think it exists that we're just nasty human beings. I think there's a lot of good people who are having a lot of bad days and having maybe a lot of nasty things happening to them, and they're overwhelmed and they're stressed to the max and they're depressed. And so it expects somebody who is stressed out, who is overwhelmed, who does hate their life. How do you expect that person to show up? If somebody hates their life, feels like it's meaningless, they have no impact, how do you expect that person to show up in their life? Do you expect them to show up and be gracious and loving and kind and accepting? No, you expect them to be angry and project and get upset and lash out because that's their life right now. But it's not that they're a terrible human being. Okay, so if you agree with me on that, that allows you to have more empathy. To, before you go look at your comments, understand that there's a lot of people who hate their lives, who are coming to your video, and you want to be able to show them compassion, empathy, and understanding. Just posing that question for 8 seconds shifts your mindset so that when you see that negativity, it doesn't impact you as much. It may not remove the sting all the way. That will still take a little bit of thickening of the skin, but it removes a lot of the sting, it removes a lot of the poison, because now you understand that the person who's throwing poison at you is living inside of poison themselves. They hate their own lives. They don't even know you, but they're projecting onto you. So step number 1 is have empathy for people. Number 2 is then ask yourself, is there anything to learn? Being able to read through your feedback and your comments is a great chance to learn. For people who turn off comments on their YouTube videos, you're missing out a giant opportunity to learn, to get better, to embrace, to understand. Where I get why some people will do it is because they don't want to see some negativity, but you're missing out on a lot of feedback. And so once you can remove the sting by having empathy, then you start to think, okay, is there anything inside of this criticism that I can learn from? Because a lot of times there is actually something that you could learn from. There isn't always, maybe they're just purely being haters, but when you can remove the sting from the words, it often will give you insights into things that you can make better on your end. So if you can only, for example, accept feedback when it's nicely handed to you, when somebody's saying, hey, I love you, I love all your videos, I love everything you create, I love your products and services, I'm your biggest fan, and I've got just one little tiny piece of feedback that I think could make you a little bit better, but I love you, right? Like if that's the only way you can accept feedback, you're never going to grow as an entrepreneur. You're never going to accomplish your big goals. Very often people will be angry, will rage, will get upset. Is it fair? No, but can you empathize and understand? Yes. Inside of that feedback, there might be 90% just anger and frustration, but there's a 10% kernel of truth that you can actually use and learn and get better. So once you remove the sting through empathy, step 2 is ask yourself, is there anything else I can learn from this? And then step number 3 is show love. Show love, default to showing love. Use something like much love or sending you love, not having to dive down into the specifics of what was said, because there may not be a response. What's your response what do you want to say? You want to say, you're an idiot. Right? You want to act out of frustration. You want to act off of the emotions that you're feeling right now. You may even want to dive into the specifics, but once you often dive into the specifics of their argument and you realize there's no logic behind it that makes sense, there's no point in trying to make a logical argument. Just give them love. Sending you love. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by and sharing. Right? Something simple that you can connect with. This is something that I would say, but something simple like that you can connect with. Again, it's shocking. It really is shocking how many people will come back the next day and apologize or recognize that they were reacting and they weren't expecting the response. They weren't expecting love. They're hoping that somebody notices them, so they freak out, but they weren't expecting love as a response. They're expecting more vitriol. They're expecting more negativity, but they're arming themselves up because at least they're getting some kind of attention, whereas nobody's paying attention to them right now. But if you show up to that hate, showing love in response, you'd be surprised at how many people actually make the shift. But again, even if it's not for them, it's for everybody else that is watching your video, that is paying attention to your content, that is buying your products and services, for them to look at that and see, holy cow, this is exactly why I follow this person, because they're a leader, because this is how they stand up to negativity, and I aspire to be someone like you. Now, I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video? And write down in the comments below what you're going to do about it this week. When you schedule in what day, what time, and what place you're going to take action, you have a 91% chance of following through. Versus just a 35% chance if you got motivated, but then never actually had a plan. And when you share your plan publicly and have some accountability, your chances of following through go up even higher. So in the comments below, write down your single biggest takeaway and your plan of action this week so I can celebrate you.
What do you think about masks in terms of identity? Because for someone like you who spends a lot of time thinking about this, that not only did you go see a therapist, like it actually registered in your mind that would be a helpful thing. For a lot of people it doesn't. They actually don't know what their true self is. Like, how do they begin to deconstruct and differentiate between, like, when you talk about wearing the athlete mask for so long in your life, and that was real, right? Like, you had a real passion for it. You still do. I mean, you're on the US national handball team, so it's like there's a point at which it's real and sort of core to who you are when you're being authentic, and then it spills over into a mask. How do you help people deconstruct that process to find where those marks are?
I think it's a lot of self-discovery. It's a lot of, for me, what worked was having open conversations and asking for feedback. And when you're wearing a mask, you don't want feedback. You want to know that you're right, that your way is the right way because it's been working for you. So asking someone, hey, how do I show up for you? is there anything I do that just rubs you the wrong way? Or do you feel like is hurting our relationship? Or do you feel like I'm disconnected in any
How
way?
often did you have conversations like that?
Growing up, not many. But 4 years ago after this fight, I started having them every day with everyone, everyone in my life. I think, here's something you can start with. You can either have an open conversation with someone and ask them to rate you. Whatever works for you. Hey, will you write a list of the things that you feel like work really well for me, my strengths and my weaknesses? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how open am I to feedback for you? Am I, 9 where I'm pretty open pretty much all the time? Or am I at a 2 where anytime you ever suggest anything, I push you away? Just start getting feedback from your closest friends. If you have an audience, you can ask your audience, from your family.
Did you ask your audience?
I didn't necessarily ask them to grade me, or something like that, but I started having an open dialogue with my audience. I started sharing and revealing things. I started opening up about the things I was going through, things I was letting go from my past that had really affected me, and kind of having more like a confessional with people, with my audience of this is what's happened to me, this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm working on. I hope you'll stick around.
Right.
But I think asking people to write you a letter. If you can't have an open conversation, if you don't feel good about that, email someone and say, hey, I just want to get some feedback. I'm not going to get upset. I want you to speak openly to me, but could you write a list of 5 things that I do really well, 5 things that you feel like are holding me back, and from our relationship, from my relationship with other people, and from my dreams. Start there. You're going to get so much, and say, I want you to be completely honest. Again, it's just one person's opinion, but it's their perception, and perception is reality to that person. So I try to get as much feedback as possible from my closest friends, my family. I had a one-on-one conversation with every family member.
Wow.
I took ownership and apologized for everything that I'd ever done. And I revealed all the things that had happened to me that I was terrified for them to know.
If you want to change your life in 30 days for free, check out the program right here below me. Or if you want to learn from Jay Shetty how to unweed your garden, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe. I'll see you there.